Hey guys, MiniWargamer Mike here, and today we are going to do a little bit of terrain work. What I have here is an amourcast dumpster, and so far I've just primed it black, and we're just going to go ahead and we're actually going to paint this today. What I'm going to be using to paint it, I'm going to start with Reaper Olive Green, just to give it a general sort of dumpster green color. Then we're going to add a little bit of detail using bolt gun metal, and finally we're going to give it a Devlin mud wash to make it look dirty because it's a dumpster. So to start, I'm going to use just a regular large 1/8 brush. You can see this one's a little bit old and beat up. I really don't care for what I'm doing here today. We're just applying big coats to a dumpster, so we don't need a nice clean brush to do this. I just want to make sure we get a nice even coverage of this first coat, keeping in mind that this is a dumpster, so it doesn't really need to look like it's very well maintained. If we have a few scrapes and scratches, a couple areas where the paint is patchy, probably just makes it look more like a dumpster. Now a lot of dumpsters, that top lid is actually made out of plastic, so I could have actually left that black or painted it a different color than the rest of the dumpster, but there's also a lot of dumpsters where the entire thing is metal or color matched, so we're just going to leave that as is for now. If it looks like it needs a little bit of extra detail, we might go back and change the color. You can see I'm not really being too careful here. If I show a couple brush strokes on a dumpster, I really don't mind. It's meant to hold garbage, not look pretty. Now this dumpster is made by amourcast. There's also a couple of variants of it. They have a couple where they're open and you can actually see garbage inside them. I'm not going to bother painting the bottom. There's no need to. Dumpsters are really heavy. They don't get tipped over too often. I'm being a little hasty here. I'm actually getting some wet paint on my finger, so I've probably got some fingerprints on the other side of this dumpster right now. We'll touch that up afterwards. Okay, we're gonna leave that dry for a minute or two, and then I'll be back. Okay, I went ahead, I cheated a little bit, and I put the second coat of paint on. You can see it's just a fairly uniform green all around. I left it a little bit splotchy in some places, just to give it the sort of weathered look. What we're going to do next is take our bolt gun metal, and I'm not going to use a paintbrush for this, I'm actually going to use a toothpick. So just give this a little shake. And what we're going to do is you take your toothpick and just get a little bit of bolt gun on the end, and just sort of drag it horizontally along some parts. Doesn't need to be very perfect. You can actually smear it a little bit with your finger. And it just creates the look of the paint chipping off in some places. If you've read the ebook, Tim actually does this in weathering tanks. It's pretty much the exact same idea. It just creates the look that paint is chipping off. And you don't want to get too much on the toothpick, you just want a very thin coat. And you just want to keep going around the whole trash can, just constantly applying this to a couple different edges. You don't need to do it to every edge. It actually looks a little bit overdone if you do that, but you do want to get it around. Especially these outer edges. This is where, these two pieces here is where on a normal dumpster where it would actually be picked up by the equipment. So this would be the most banged up area. I'm cheating a lot and spreading this with my finger. I really don't mind getting paint on myself. And of course down near the bottom it would probably be pretty chipped up as well. Oh, that looks more like a smear than anything. That's too much. I'll cover that back up later with just a little bit more of the green paint. And then you really want to pay attention. You want it really quite chipped up on the corners. Corners are what take the most damage. And then down near the bottom we'll do the same thing. Just really mess up our corners. Another thing you do with the toothpick is actually draw some scratches on just using the edge of the toothpick. They don't always come out right. Sometimes you need a little bit more paint on the brush for that, or on the toothpick for that. But they create a pretty good effect. And of course you don't have to do this on dumpsters. This same technique can be used for making a vehicle look really beat up, even chipping the edges of armor on larger units. Basically just creates the look of sort of damaged and worn metal, which happens on a lot of cases in 40K. And in other games like War Machines, little battle damage on your jacks won't look bad. Let's get a few more scrapes here, a couple on the other side as well. Okay, so there we've got a fairly beat up dumpster. Just add a few more little bumps and bruises to it. Okay, that's about as beat up as we want this to be. So the next step is to take our Devlin mud wash. You see my hand's nice and silver now. We're just going to take our wash, and we're going to use a lot of this. I'm just gonna load the brush up, and then just, especially around the edges, you wanna brush the whole thing, but you want it to really get into the creases and just add that definition. I'm using definitely mud wash because it just gives it a really nice dirty look as well. I don't know if it nice and dirty really go together, but it's a dumpster and we want it to look authentic. You can see a lot of brush stroke here. I don't like that, so we're gonna kind of take that out. Now you'd want to take a little more care if you were applying a wash to a unit. This is just a small piece of terrain though, so I'm not spending quite as much time putting care into it and making sure that all my brush strokes are hidden. I don't mind if this looks a little bit, just a little mangled. Like I said, it is a dumpster. It can just look like it's not really well kept anyway, because chances are it's not. The Imperium barely looks after its citizens. I don't really know how much they care about a dumpster. I'm gonna cheat a little here. I've got too much wash there, so I'm actually just gonna take a paper towel and wipe that area down. And there we have a dirty, messy, banged up dumpster. Wash is still a little bit wet here, but you can see that it's really got a nice, irregular, looks like it's seen much better days kind of look to it. And it'll look really awesome as a piece of cover on a City Fight board. And that's it.